It's Twitter Tuesday on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. We've got a big listener mailbag coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. Happy Tuesday to everybody. It is a Twitter Tuesday. That means we're answering your questions, and we got a lot of questions to get through between what we received on Twitter, what we received via the email account. So about a little over a dozen questions for today. I'm going to get through all of them. And as a reminder, if you don't hear your question or if it didn't get answered, it probably came in after I taped this. So I can always pick it up in the Giants Country mailbag, or if you want to have it answered next week, I'm happy to do that as well. As always, folks, thank you so much for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day, or if watching YouTube, your first watch of the day. And a reminder that the Locked On Giants podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So hope you will take up a subscription and hope you will give us a 5-star review. It would be greatly appreciated. All right. So like I said, we have a Twitter Tuesday today. We are answering your questions. And we've got about 15 or so, I think. So let's jump right in. All right, our first question comes from @J.Hockley, who asks, how common is it for the Giants or any team to draft players that they did not use a top 30 visit on? I would say, J. Hockley, common. I mean, think about it for a second here. How many NFL teams have 30 draft picks? And if teams are using all of their their allotted 30 top visits, to meet with players, chances are there's going to be some that come in that they don't draft. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty common given the math. So thanks for that question. Next question comes from Dr. Moore 1976 @Dr. Moore 1976. What would you prefer for 7 if all the options were there? Sauce, Thibodeau, or the Saints offering 16, 18, and their second this year? Ooh. I'm going to say Thibodeau. I'm going to say Thibodeau there. Thibodeau, I think, is one of the best pass rushers in this class. As tempting as that Saints offer is, I think, in that case, don't get cute there. Take Thibodeau. If the Saints made it their number 1 next year, I might think about it, but I'm thinking build for this year. Start getting some starters in here and stop, futzing around with trading down and getting cute and stuff like that. I mean, it would have to be a really sweet offer, and I just don't think that the offer as you described it is sweet enough for me to not take Thibodeau in that spot. So thank you for that question. All right, next question comes from @Spider733. What draft move by the Giants would shock you but is still a possibility? Oh, wow. There's probably a few, Spider. One that would definitely shock me is if the Giants do not draft an offensive tackle with one of their top first-round picks. If they defer that to round 2 or round 3 or later in the draft, that would shock me. Another one that would shock me, I think, would be if they drafted a quarterback at 5 or 7. I don't think they're going to do it, but hey, you never know. And I would say probably another move that would shock me would be if they passed on one of the stud pass rushers, Thibodeau, Hutchinson, if he falls down to them. If one of those guys is sitting there, I think you got to take him. You can't. I know this is a deep class for pass rushers, but you've got your Batman and then you've got your Robins, and guys like Hutchinson and Thibodeau, I think, are of the Batman variety. So that would surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me because maybe the Giants feel that the class is deep enough to where there's a Batman that they see that I think is a Robin. So that's the beauty of these drafts. Thanks for that question. All right, up next we hear from at Steve10Gman. And he wants to know, if the Giants had the first two picks, number 1 and number 2 in the draft, who would I pick? I would pick an offensive tackle, and I probably would go with Ikwonu at that spot. Maybe not number 1 overall, but I would definitely go with Ikwonu, and I would go with an edge rusher, I think. Would I go with I might go with Thibodeau there. I know Hutchinson's a good, prospect, but I might go with Thibodeau there. I just think Thibodeau would be maybe a better fit. I think he's more of, based on what I know of, and granted, I'm going to get an opportunity, I hope, to see a little bit more at the mini camp this week. But I think Thibodeau might be a little bit better of a fit there for the Giants defense, based on what I know about it so far. So that's what I would do. I would probably do Thibodeau and one of the offensive tackles, Ikwonu, 1 and 2. So thank you for that question. That was a fun one. All right. Up next, we hear from San F81. With the Giants on the clock at number 5, do you see any scenario where Carolina and the Giants swap 5 and 6 plus a 2023 first rounder? Carolina has been rumored to covet a certain quarterback in this class. No, I don't see that scenario happening. As I record this, there's actually now speculation, rumor, whatever you want to call it, that Carolina is kicking the tires on Baker Mayfield. And if the Panthers get Baker Mayfield, then you can forget about the Panthers obviously needing a quarterback. But regardless here, I think what you're proposing with the Giants and the Panthers swapping picks 5 and 6, and the Panthers throwing in a 2023 first round, I don't see them doing that. That's too much to move up one spot. I just don't see that happening. So, but thanks for that question. I mean, hey, there's so many different. This draft is like a Rubik's Cube. There's so many different ways that it can go based on how the board falls. So it's going to be interesting for sure to see how it falls. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's Twitter Tuesday. But first, if you're tired of dealing with low energy, poor gut health, or just having to take supplement after supplement, you need to check out AG1 by Athletic Greens. With one delicious and easy to mix scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens for less than $3 a day. Visit athleticgreens.com/NFL Network and get a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NFL Network to take advantage of this special offer. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's Locked On Giants podcast. But first, BetOnline.net is the only place that offers the best information on the latest odds, contests, and player props for all your sports betting needs. No matter what sport you're into, BetOnline.net has you covered. Plus, they offer everything you need to know for live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head on over to BetOnline.net today to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I am Patricia Traina, and coming up on the Locked On Giants podcast tomorrow, I have Coach Gene Clemens is back with me, and I got to tell you guys, this interview with Coach Gene Clemens, don't miss this one. This one was really good. We were talking in terms of, generic roster building, some plans, and Coach Gene came up with some really good observations and possibilities that I don't think a lot of people are talking about. And, that's him putting to use his coaching and talent evaluation skills that he has acquired through the years. So that will be on Wednesday's show. Now, also on Wednesday, as you probably know by now, if you have followed on Twitter, the Giants have their voluntary keyword voluntary, mini camp this week. This is the extra mini camp that they get as a benefit of having a new coaching staff. So the Wednesday session will be open to the media. Now, how much of it will be open to the media, I don't know. But also, General Manager Joe Shane is scheduled to speak to the media on Wednesday. So I will devote probably Thursday's show to the mini camp, what we saw, assuming that we see anything worth reporting, and to what Shane had to say. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to get that pod out early on Wednesday so that you have it. So rather than having to wait till midnight Eastern time on Thursday to get it, I'll try to get that one out to you as soon as I can. So that's a look at what is coming up here on the LockedOn Giants podcast. Hope you will stay tuned in and appreciate you as always for watching and listening. All right, let's get back to your Twitter Tuesday questions. All right, up first in this segment, we have at Giants World. Will Joe Shane take more of an approach that the roster can't get fixed in one draft, or will he try to draft every position's need, which is a lot, just to get depth? Giants World, I think what Shane is probably going to do is go best available. And if best available happens to marry up with a need, even better. You're right. You're not going to fix all the problems on this team in one draft. It's just not going to happen, even though they have 9 picks. All right. So I think what Shane's approach will be, and again, we will hopefully find out more about it when we speak to him on Wednesday, is Shane will probably look to add some depth to this team. I mean, I think he's got to come out with at least 4 starters, given the first, rounds 1, 2, and 3. He's got to come out with starters there, I would think. Solidify some of the more glaring holes. And then next year, when the team has a little better cap situation, then maybe you can fill in some of the blanks, so to speak, that you weren't able to cover this year. So, I don't think Shane's going to go in and say, okay, in round 1, I got to get an offensive tackle and a defensive end. In round 2, I got to get a safety. In round 3, I got to get a running back. I don't think he's going to do that. I think it's going to be best available and just build up as many, new pieces as possible to give them an opportunity to come together, to mesh, if you will, as they learn that new system that's being put in on offense and defense by this coaching staff. So that's the approach I think they'll take. Thanks for that question. All right, CGF_NFL. If the Giants take care of edge and tackle in round 1, what would be a more pressing need? I'm assuming you mean in round 2. And again, I don't know that you can necessarily prioritize pressing needs, but here's the thing. You probably, first off, it's going to be best available, as I said. It's going to be who's on the board, who represents the best value. So if you try to draft for a specific position, it's not going to work. I mean, ask any draft analyst or general manager, and they will tell you the same thing. You don't draft that way. If value and need match up, then you're ahead of the game. But I'll answer your question anyway as far as what would be a more pressing need. I would say safety. I would try and get safety. I would say inside linebacker is pressing. They do have a nose guard, so maybe they can get a nose guard at some point, a younger nose guard for the future. They need a tight end. But if you're asking me, based on purely the position played, safety would be my answer to that question. So thanks for your email, or your tweet rather. All right. Peter the Beast 3 asks, will Bradbury get traded on draft night? Peter, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Joe Shane wants to give the guy up for a song and a dance. I think the value in return has to be there. I also think that you might see if some of these teams that need a cornerback can get a cornerback. This is a deep class for a cornerback. So there is a potential possibility that the Giants keep Bradbury, but they redo his contract. I'll be curious to see what happens there. I don't believe Bradbury has been at the voluntary off-season program so far. And that could just be because, they're cooling their jets with him and waiting to see what happens. But, like I said, I could potentially see a scenario where Bradbury is on this team next year, albeit at a reduced salary cap number. So thanks for that question. All right, now we are done with our Twitter questions. So let's now turn to our email questions. Up first, we hear from Javier F., who says, since we're not expected to contend next season, what do you think about using our first 2 picks elsewhere and picking a developmental tackle in the 2nd or 3rd round who can learn on the job and become a stud in a year or 2? Now, Javier, fix the offensive line, please. I'm so tired of these developmental prospects and picks for the offensive line. Just get it fixed once and for all. You're right. I don't think the Giants are expected to contend this year, but get the kid in the door, have the coaches work with him and hopefully, smooth out any rough patches. You got to remember, Javier, you also got to find out what you got in Daniel Jones. All right? You don't have a right tackle. That offensive line isn't fixed. So my answer to your question, fix the offensive line. Don't be cute. Get it done. All right. Thanks for your question. All right. Next email question comes from Zach B. And he writes about Dave Gettleman. 4 straight years we hear Gettleman acting like he knows it all and to trust his process. Well, he failed and did a ton of awful moves. I don't need to remind you. You know what they are. Why is there no accountability? All right, Zach, Gettleman's not here anymore. I'm really not sure why we continue to beat this dead horse here, but I know I've said on this program before that, for what it's worth, Jerry Reese got fired for basically delivering the same type of results as Gettleman. And Jerry Reese, I think, you can make an argument that he had a little better record than Gettleman did. And did it bother me that, Gettleman was allowed to waltz off into the sunset and Reese was unceremoniously fired? Yes, it did. Because at the end of the day, you had the same results. Now, I don't know what you mean by accountability. I mean, what do you expect here, Zach? Do you expect John Mara to say, oh, I made a mistake, or, oh, Dave Gettleman screwed up? I mean, if that's what you're expecting, that's never going to happen. The point is Gettleman has retired, whatever you want to call it. As they say in Frozen, let it go. Let it go. Let's move on. Let's look ahead. And, closure, you'll get over it. Trust me, you will get over it in time. Time heals all wounds, so to speak. So, all right. Thank you for that question. Folks, we still have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast right after this. All right, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models, there's only one place to find what you need quickly for your car or truck, and that's at rockauto.com. RockAuto.com is a family business with over 20 years of offering competitive pricing on thousands of parts for every make, model, and manufacturer. Check out their website today, and don't forget to write down Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. RockAuto.com, amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to segment 3 of the Locked On Giants podcast. I am Patricia Traina, and you have a Twitter Tuesday. And again, don't forget to keep it here all week long on the Locked On Giants podcast. We have Coach Gene Clemens coming up tomorrow. We're going to have a recap, thoughts from Joe Shane's draft preview presser, and anything that comes out of the voluntary minicamp that is actually starts, I think, on Tuesday. It starts today, and it's going to run through Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll see what comes out of that. And, of course, I'll just keep on bringing you content as we get closer and closer and closer to the conclusion of draft season. That's right. In less than 2 weeks, we will find out. We will have answers. Thank goodness, right? Okay, let's get back to your Twitter Tuesday questions. Bill L. writes, are you concerned that Joe Schoen this year is having to rely on the same failed scouts? Bill, no, I'm not concerned for a couple reasons. Number one, I know that Joe Schoen has done his own scouting work. And I would like to think that if somebody came in and gave him a bum report or something he doesn't agree with, I would like to think that he's already scouted the players involved. Now, I remember seeing something where he had done work on well over 100 players. He had done scouting reports on over 100 players. And that was when he was hired back in January. So it is very possible that he has done a lot more work since then. So no, I am not worried about that. And here's the other thing. Do we really know the records of each individual scout? So no, I wouldn't worry about that. I mean, we'll find out after the draft who's going to stay and who's going to go. But Shane's done his own work. If he sat in his office and didn't do any work, then I might be concerned. But Shane's done his own work. Trust me, nothing to worry about there. All right, Michael B. He asks, what do you think of the Giants drafting Jeremy Ruckerts from OSU and Chad Muma in the third or fourth round? Michael, I don't think Chad Muma is going to last that long, if I'm being honest with you. I think Muma might be a second rounder. I would be very surprised if he lasts to the third or fourth round. Ruckers, trying to think. I know I've seen work on him. I'm actually hoping for Jake Ferguson because, look, the Giants are not going to be carrying a fullback this year, so I want somebody who's more of a move tight end, an H-back type. And if I remember correctly in the scouting reports, and I've seen so many scouting reports, sometimes I think they start to run together, but I think Ferguson could be that guy. So that would be my choice for a tight end, I think, for the Giants. And I'd like to see them maybe look at a tight end if one is there like early day 3. So probably around round 4 if they last that long. So, all right, Jaden M. When will you be ready with player evaluations for the NFL draft? Jaden, head on over to Giants Country. Every day we're putting out at least one new scouting report. We've got a link to the library. Nick Filato has been writing them for me, but I've also had to edit them, so I've been reading them. I do have some familiarity with some of the names. I mean, there's a lot of names, and obviously, I don't remember all of them. I'd have to go back and look stuff up, but there's plenty over at Giants Country. Go to giantscountry.com. Go to the draft section. You will see them all. All right, so check those out. All right, one more question from, let's see, this is from Andrew G. Say we get our tackle at 7, Sauce, Jermaine, Johnson, Walker, and Thibodeau are on the board. Who do you take and why? Thibodeau. I think I might have said that earlier in the show, but Thibodeau, I want the pass rusher, and it's not even close for me. I think at that point, Thibodeau was the best option on the board. If they are planning to keep James Bradbury, then I think, maybe the need to take Sauce or a cornerback in the first round diminishes some. So, Thibodeau, get me a Batman pass rusher. I've been screaming for one ever since they traded Jason Pierre-Paul. And I'm not going to stop until they get one. So, that's who I would take and why. Now, I do want to acknowledge the voicemail that came in from Greg. Greg left me a rather lengthy voicemail. And for some reason, I couldn't import it into the audio here for the show. But Greg basically argued against trading down. It was kind of a long-winded argument. But Greg, I just want to acknowledge that, and I also want to respond to your opinion, if I could here. If you have an opportunity to pick up more picks in the top 100, the top 50. You absolutely do it. This is such a deep class. So if you have to, if you trade down a few spots, So what? I mean, if you're picking up extra guys in the top 50 or top 75, top 100, that's more chances of getting starters. And this team needs a lot of starters, a lot of depth, a lot of everything. So I wouldn't be so close-minded to trading down if I were you, Greg, especially if it means that it could bring more goodies, if you will, this year. You know, Joe Shane spoke about wanting more at-bats, and this would be a perfect way. I mean, if it means, you know, everybody's off the board at 7 that the Giants might have ranked at 7, and they can move down a few spots and still get good value, no brainer, man. It's a no brainer. So, but thanks for the voicemail, and I apologize that I wasn't able to import it into the show. I don't know if my program changed or something. The app changed that we use to get these voicemails, but I'll have to look into that a little bit more. So keep those calls coming, Greg. Appreciate you, and I appreciate you listening to the program every morning on your way to work. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, tomorrow, Coach Gene Clemens will be on the program. And also make sure you tune in if you're on Twitter, or maybe you're not on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. I'll have whatever I can report from the voluntary minicamp. I'll have tweets from Joe Shane's presser. And like I said, I'll try and get a show out. As soon as I get home, I'll try to put a show together. I'll certainly have stuff on Giants Country, but we'll try and get a show out early so you guys can kind of drink in everything that happened once I have a chance to digest everything and make heads and tails out of it. So that's what's coming up. As always, thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Until next time, my friends, we'll talk soon.